Around the coast of Great Britain, there are a number of RNLI lifeboat stations. With no exceptions, we have here one at St.Agnes, which is on the north coast of Cornwall. And at this station, we are privileged to have one of the Blue Peter inshore rescue crafts. This afternoon, we have Ray Thomas with us, the gentleman who is responsible for this club, i.e. being the Honorary Secretary. And if I may ask you, Ray, can you tell me when was this club actually formed?
Yes, St.Agnes Lifeboat Station was formed in 1968. A local person, Mr. John Redfern, actually pioneered the movement. He approached the RNLI, and after several approaches, he persuaded the RNLI to hold a public meeting in St.Agnes, and from then on the station was formed.
And from then on, how does one go ahead then and say, right, we want a lifeboat?
I think it was sort of definitely due to the continued efforts of Mr. John Redfern to the RNLI after the public meeting that they sort of saw the point made by John and agreed to put a boat at St.Agnes.
Operational crew, how many have you actually have you on the station?
I have 16 members on call.
And is there an age I'm a member of the crew?
Yes, there is a retirement age limit, and that's at 45.
And what about training? How are they actually trained?
Training is carried out every fortnight. It's held on a Friday starting about 5:30. Most times it's sort of carried out by the senior helmsman. It consists of various types of work according to sea conditions, i.e. compass work, changing of engine props, mechanical work at sea, working in surf, casualties off rocks and swimmers from the water, etc. And
what about, no doubt you are in quite close cooperation with the other emergency services such as?
Yes, we work very closely with our local Coast Guard, also with the Culrose helicopter, and also we have close communication with the surf clubs along our coastline.
So when there is a rescue, a call out, what is the actual procedure from your point of view to the members of the crew?
Our procedure is that when we're working on exercise or on service, we have close communication at all times with Falmouth Coast Guard.
And what happens if a shout does go up? I mean, who are the ones, Falmouth Coast Guard, your first contact?
That is correct. Falmouth Coast Guards ring me at my home place. I accept the casualty call. I then fire 2 Maroons, which assembles the crew at the boathouse.
That's great. And what about the actual organisation now? Looking back on the social side, I understand it is self-motivated.
Yes, the RNLI is self-motivated. It's a big charity. It was founded by charity and is funded all the way through by charity contributions.
And just going back to the actual one of the rescue call-outs, in your experience and the time with the organisation, is there one particular rescue which comes to mind?
Yes, there's one that I can recall, and that was where we had a service to be carried out to Porttown in a place what we called the Rock, and that was where David Bliss was the helmsman at the time. Horrendous seas, and at this particular place at Porttown there's a natural sea wall right across where the casualty had to be picked up inside. David himself had to judge the seas and virtually drive the boat with the sea over the wall to get inside to pick up the casualty.
Very, very brave crew and people.
Very much so, yes.
Now, I understand that you do a lot of organisations from the social side, from your social committees, and I understand once a year you have a lifeboat day.
That's right. Our next lifeboat day is being held on August the 1st. It's a great day. It's a fun day for crew, members, all the public, everyone concerned, and a good fundraising day as well.
Well, that's great. So, with all that information, we'd like to now show you one of these demonstrations of a rescue carried out by the St.Agnes inshore Blue Peter rescue craft in conjunction with the Coast Guards and with 771 Squadron RNS Culrose.
Guard Mobile now proceeds to Trevonance Point to assess and monitor the service being carried out. The crew, in response to the emergency call-out, assembled at the boathouse. The first crewman in the boathouse takes a telephone call from the station secretary, who informs him what the casualties are and where they are.
Hello, Ray. Yeah. One in the water, one on the rocks. persons, one in water, one on the rocks.
Okay.
Dry suits are worn by the crew. They are completely wind and waterproof. They cost £150 each. The Iziki tractor, 24 horsepower diesel, is used for launching and recovering the boat. It has a ratio of 16 forward gears, creep speed being even slower than a person can walk. The Mariner outboard, which is a 40 horsepower through exhaust, is started and tested before the boat puts to sea. Radio checks are carried out at Falmouth Coast Guard as soon as the boat is in the water. Checks are carried out on Channel 0 and Channel 16. Launchers always assist in launching and recovering the boat. Coast Guards are now proceeding to the service that's being carried out by the St.Agnes Lifeboat.
Lifeboat Zulu.
One swimmer has been spotted in the water, and there's also another casualty attempting to climb the rocks. When the lifeboat comes to a swimmer in the water, the helmsman always puts his motor into neutral gear. The patient is always pulled aboard the boat backwards so that he falls naturally in the bottom of the boat. The boat now approaches the rock to pick up the casualty on the rocks. The helmsman keeps his lifeboat in forward gear, driving the bows gently against the rock and keeps up a forward pressure. One crewman goes on to the rocks. He assesses the casualty on the rocks, and his first job is to fit the survivor's life jacket. A bump hat is also fitted onto the casualty to protect his head when he's being transferred into the lifeboat. The second crewman has now gone onto the rock to assist the first crewman to get the casualty into the lifeboat. The lifeboat is now reversed away from the rocks. You will now see a transfer of the casualties from the lifeboat to the helicopter. Lifeboat comes in at the 20 past position on the starboard side of the helicopter, awaiting his approach until the ridgeman has actually left the aircraft itself. management will put a strap around the casualty that's being lifted, and he also uses the leg lock position. Both casualties are now on board the helicopter. The lifeboat now returns to St.Agnes beach and is recovered by the tractor and trailer. Once at the boathouse and after refueling is completed, the boat, trailer, tractor and all equipment worn by the crew is washed down by hosepipe with fresh water. Falmouth Coast Guard is then advised by telephone that the boat is rehosed ready for service.
Agnes Lifeboat House to just say the boat's back refueled and rehoused, ready for service. Okay, thank you very much. Cheers now, bye.
Ja,